How can we truly embody abundance when we might not feel abundant? How can we channel that abundance mindset that attracts even when our mind might naturally drift towards lack or towards scarcity or feeling not enough? I honestly feel like abundance mindset has never been something that's come easy to me. It's never felt supernatural. And it's always something that's frustrated me because I know that the secret to success and manifestation is truly embodying that abundance mindset. And it's especially frustrating when I see it seemingly be so natural and easy for certain people. I wondered why I didn't have that natural tendency or thoughts within myself, why the first thoughts that come to mind are ones of lack and scarcity at times. And so I started to wonder like, okay, is this something that's just like set and innate within me? Is this just a part of my character and who I am that I can't change? Or is this something that I can practice, something that I can train myself to really learn, to practice that abundance? And the good news is, turns out that we can. So today, that's what we're going to dive into. Channeling abundance, how to really practice that abundance mindset to attract, to be successful, to manifest, even when you might not naturally feel abundant, even when you might also naturally drift towards those thoughts of lack or thoughts of scarcity. I'm going to share with you the ways that I practically and realistically shift every single day to practice that abundance mindset. And again, to preface, this is not something that I'm a pro at. It's not something that comes naturally for me. It's been quite a journey to practice it every single day. But that's why I honestly think that the perspective I'm going to share in this episode might be refreshing and realistic and approachable and helpful, especially if you're also someone who might not naturally feel like they have that easy abundance mindset. Something that might feel forced to you maybe. Because again, it often feels hard for me at times. It often doesn't feel natural to have those thoughts of abundance, but I'm going to share with you how I pause and shift to always come back to abundance whenever I feel that lack and scarcity creeping in. Because one thing I do want to highlight is that you don't have to actually feel abundant in order to practice that abundance mindset. It might not even feel natural. It might feel forced, but you can choose to practice these shifts even when you don't feel like it. Because also the more that you actually lean into practicing this, the more that you make this shift when you catch yourself in lack and scarcity, the more natural it's going to feel. And also the more effective it's going to be in your life to feel more actually abundant. But real quick, before getting into these simple shifts, the things that I do to shift from scarcity to abundance, for any of you who are wondering what the heck is scarcity and abundance, because I was actually chatting with someone recently and they're like, wait, what's scarcity and abundance mindset? So in case you're listening and don't know what this is, scarcity mindset is the belief that resources are limited, right? It's the belief that there's not enough. It leads to focus on fear and competition and focusing on what's lacking. It can result in hesitating on taking risks or truly opening up and sharing with others. It just really stems from this fear of lack, always feeling like there's not enough. Whereas abundance mindset, again, that thing that we're striving for, is built on the belief that there are more than enough resources and that there's opportunities and success out there for everyone. It leads to a more open-minded perspective on life. It leads to the willingness to collaborate and share with others, generosity, and openness to take risks and share. So why do we want this abundance mindset? What's so great about it, right? Why does it attract? How does that work? Very simply put, our thoughts become things. If you've read The Secret, then you really understand what I'm talking about, because if you haven't, you might be like, what are you saying? It's really true. The thoughts that we're constantly giving energy and weight to are the ones that's going to impact our perspective, but also impact the energy that we're putting out there. And the energy that we put out entirely impacts what we attract in return. The people that are drawn to us, the opportunities that come our way. Our overall perspective on life and how we feel about our lives is entirely dependent on the thoughts that we give weight to. So think about it. Now, in terms of scarcity and abundance, if we're constantly focusing on that lack, on those thoughts of scarcity, that's how we're going to feel about our life. That's going to be the energy that we put out there. Ones of lack and scarcity, and it's not going to attract those opportunities or positive, abundant people in our lives. Whereas if we focus on abundance, if we believe that there's more than enough in life, if we always see the glass as half full in terms of our circumstance in life, then that's what we're going to attract. And those positive, abundant thoughts that we give weight to are going to positively impact how we feel about our life and how we feel about our circumstance. And if we feel good about our lives, more positive things are going to come our way. So this is why abundance is the goal. And this is really what manifestation is also, because I know that can be kind of a confusing and very vague concept, right? But it's essentially just choosing positive thoughts. It's as simple as that, by shifting to positive thinking, because if we choose positive thoughts, if we feel more positively about our life, then we're going to attract more positive things into our life. Those thoughts become things. And look, again, like I said, not a pro at this. For me, it's a daily practice. So if you're feeling a little bad, like, I honestly have mostly thoughts of lack and scarcity and abundance feels really hard for me, you're not alone. I feel that way. Again, which is why I think that hopefully my perspective in this episode might be refreshing and realistic for you and relatable, rather than me sitting here and saying like, choose thoughts of abundance. It's easy. I've mastered abundance and I attract every single thing I want in my life. It's okay if you tend to dwell towards that lack and scarcity, but by becoming aware that those are the thoughts that you're giving weight to, that is the first step in taking the step towards shifting to abundance. You need to become aware of the thoughts you're giving weight to, which is the perfect segue into good stuff, right? How can we embody abundance when we might not naturally feel abundant? How can we shift from not enough to more than enough? At least this is how I do it. First thing I do when I notice myself falling down those spirals of scarcity thinking is become aware of it. I need to become aware that I'm clinging to those negative thoughts, to those thoughts of lack and not enough, if I want to shift. So how do I know if those are the thoughts I'm clinging to? So to help give some perspective here, I'll share some thoughts that I notice regularly come up for me when I find myself in scarcity thinking. So one might be, I'm not saving enough right now. I really shouldn't be spending so much. Or I wish I had more followers or listeners. I don't have enough. Or they're so successful, they're so much further along than I am, I'll never get there. Or that's too expensive, or that's too risky, I really shouldn't. Or that doesn't make sense, that wouldn't be smart. If any of these sound familiar, or if they're similar to thoughts that you notice coming up a lot, these are all thoughts of scarcity. And the thing that they all have in common, how you know that they're actually thoughts of scarcity, is they all embody the theme of not enough. They're all essentially saying that there's not enough out there for me, or I need to cling to these things tightly because there's not enough for everyone. And the way you can also tell that it's scarcity or lack thinking is because they make you feel a bit negative. If you go back and think to all those thoughts, at least when I was saying it just a second ago, none of them make me feel good or positive. They all have that kind of negative vibe to it because you're focusing on the glass half empty. It kind of brings you into fight or flight because you feel like you need to chase things or cling to things because you're thinking that there's not enough and you're thinking that the resources and success is limited for you. So I noticed that when I'm clinging to these scarcity thoughts, when I'm in that scarcity mindset, my overall mood is a bit lower. I feel a little bit more negative on life. And that's the energy that I notice that I radiate outwards. And in becoming aware of these thoughts, it's also important to become aware of why we're having these thoughts. What's the point of this scarcity mindset? Why does my mind keep going to these thoughts? I know 100% that I'm telling myself that they're protecting me. That's what my mind thinks it's doing, right? By focusing on what's missing or what's negative, because we're protecting ourselves as human beings. It's evolution. It's focusing on the negative as a protection mechanism. But I know that focusing on these thoughts is not serving me. It's just holding me back and keeping me stuck in this negative way of thinking, and definitely not attracting the things and people that I want to in my life. So because I know that it's not actually protecting me and it's not serving any higher purpose, I know that when I become aware of these thoughts, the sooner I'm able to shift out of them, the better. And the quicker you shift out of them too, the easier it is to shift into those thoughts of abundance. So reminding myself when they come up, like, okay, I'm telling myself that by focusing on this, it's protecting me or giving me some element of control over what's, quote, wrong, but really it's not. It's just directing my focus on the negative, right? On what feels in lack. It's not serving me in any way. It's really not giving me any control. It's just directing my energy towards that glass half empty. So again, the sooner that we can shift out of that, the better, because the longer that we focus on those thoughts of scarcity, the more prominent they're going to become in our lives. And also that's going to taint our perspective on life with that negativity, because that's going to be the perspective that we have on our circumstance, on our situation, the ones of scarcity, the ones of lack. So this brings me to the next helpful tool in this shift, right? So once I notice that these thoughts of lack and scarcity come up, a reminder that helps me let go of this need to protect myself or control, because again, we know it's not actually doing that, is to come back to simply trust. To remind myself that I don't need to dwell on or control what's, quote, wrong, but that I can let go and trust that everything's unfolding as it's meant to. And that the more that I focus on that thing, it's not going to change that thing. Again, all it's going to do is kind of have like a negative taint on my perspective of life. So instead of trying to control that circumstance or reduce that circumstance by focusing so much on it and dwelling on it, I can let go and trust that God and the universe are aligning everything exactly as it's meant to. Everything's happening in the timing it's meant to, and everything will unfold as it's meant to. I don't need to control or force or dwell on that lack mindset and the lack thinking. I'm free to focus on what's good in life because I can trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. Because again, we can't actually control things that are out of our control in life. We really can't. As much as we try to convince ourselves and tell ourselves that we can, the truth is we can't. As much as we focus on those things, it's not going to change it. So it's a really freeing feeling by trusting that it's all working out exactly as it's meant to. I no longer have to spend all my energy scrutinizing what's wrong or even focus on it because it's not fun to focus on those things. It's, again, not fun having those thoughts of scarcity. It's just we need to remind ourselves that we can let go of that desire to protect or to control. So that's the first powerful tool to release those thoughts, is to come back to trust. You don't have to force or control or protect yourself. And another effective shift, right? Once we allow ourselves to actually let go of those thoughts of scarcity, okay, how can I effectively shift to thoughts of abundance? And again, honestly, it's very simple how I do this. And it might seem so simple and obvious, but that just means that it's going to be easy for you to practice every time you notice those thoughts of scarcity come up. And honestly, it's often the simple things that are the most effective. I literally just shift my focus. I shift my focus from what's not enough and what feels like it's missing, or what I feel like I'm needing to force, what's not right, to how much I do have, how great I am doing, how great life actually is. Rather than focusing on all that's wrong or missing, I simply choose to focus on all that's good. Because again, the more we focus on all that's good in life, the more we're going to attract those things. And yes, it might seem really simple. And yes, you might have heard these reminders before, but the question is, are you actually constantly practicing them? Are you actually catching yourself in those thoughts of scarcity and making this shift to focusing on what's good, on what you do have, on the things that are great in your life, that make you feel positive? Are you actually making this shift, or do you just know this to be a fact that it's effective? And one key thing that I actually find really helpful in this shift is to keep it realistic and believable, right? Like, to me, the shift is going to be a lot more effective if I actually believe those thoughts of abundance. So I'll give an example here. Quick little interruption here. If this episode is resonating with you, if you want to start to take steps towards a life that really feels aligned, towards a life that you love, one that's filled with things that you want, that makes you feel happy, if you feel inspired to explore connecting with me in a coaching call, check out my website linked below. Set up a time with me. Let's connect. I would love to learn more about your life and support you through this journey. All right, let's get back to the episode. So a big area that I notice scarcity thoughts creep in are when it comes to money, right? I think a lot of us can relate to that. So if I'm telling myself like, oh, I really should be saving more, like that thought I had earlier, or I'm not making enough money or something like that, or that's too expensive. Some thoughts of abundance that I can shift to that I'll realistically believe that I actually feel to be true are money comes back around every week. And the things that I'm spending money on are investments in my life and things that I value. Money is a vehicle to live my best life. Spending money is just making my life better. I have more than enough money in my bank account to live a life that I love. The number in my bank account does not define who I am or my worth. It's just a vehicle to live this life. These are thoughts that to me are true and realistic, but it's focusing on the positive. Whereas I've at times tried practicing affirmations like, I'm a millionaire and I have all the money in the world and I have more money than I could ever possibly spend. And even though these are great thoughts, it feels very unrealistic and unbelievable, honestly, in terms of my current circumstance. Like, they're not things that I actually think I genuinely deep down believe. And so therefore, I think that shifting to thoughts of that extreme, at least for me, aren't as effective. I find it more effective to shift to these positive and actually believable and realistic thoughts. They're thoughts that are still abundant and will still attract more into my life, but also ones that I can actually believe, if that makes sense. And I think the shift ultimately is going to be most effective if you genuinely believe those thoughts of abundance, not if you just recite it in your mind without actually feeling deeper that you believe it to be true. And the other important element of the shift, when you're stuck in scarcity and need to shift to abundance, and again, it's similar to what I just shared, but focusing on gratitude. Coming back to gratitude will always take you from that negative frequency state to that positive frequency state. Gratitude has always proven to give us the boost we need scientifically, but also I'm sure that you can agree with this as well. Focusing on what you're grateful for will always give you that boost. So again, scarcity thinking is going to make you feel negative and bad, right? Immediately shift to one or two things in your life that you are very grateful for. Even in the slightest way, you're going to feel that boost. It's going to pull you away from focusing on the scarcity to focusing on the things that make you feel better. Because the better you feel, the more positive you feel, again, you're going to give out that energy to attract. So this time I'll do the example of the followers or listeners that I shared before, right? Like whenever I get in a scarcity mindset tunnel of like I didn't get as many likes or follows or listens on that episode or piece of content or whatever, I can come back to gratitude to remind myself, wow, how lucky am I that I have XYZ followers that get to see the inspirational content that I put out? Or wow, how lucky am I that I have this many subscribers and followers to the podcast that I put so much time and effort in? How lucky am I that they get to listen every week? Or wow, I feel so blessed that I get to do what I love and record this podcast to share my message with the world, share my insights and lessons. Gratitude will interrupt that negative thought pattern that we are having with the lack and scarcity thinking and shift us to focusing on abundance, focusing on what we're grateful for. And again, helpful note here, it might feel unnatural. You might not actually be overwhelmed with gratitude for those things, but I find the more that I make these shifts and the sooner I make that shift to catch myself in that thought of lack and scarcity and to shift and be like, okay, I can let go of that thought of scarcity, trust that it's all happening in my favor. Let me focus on something that I am grateful for, or let me reframe that thought to abundance. Like, I actually do have plenty of money in my bank account and it's affording me the life that I love. Or, wow, I actually do have really amazing followers and listeners, and I'm really grateful for that. Again, it might not be what you're truly feeling in that moment, but the more you make that shift, the more you catch yourself and shift to these thoughts of positivity and abundance and gratitude, the more natural it will feel. And the more you are going to start to believe those thoughts, because the thoughts that you practice giving weight to in your mind, the thoughts that you always come back to are going to be the ones that you ultimately start to believe. So I have started to truly believe all these thoughts, and that shift has started to feel more and more easy and natural the more that I practice it every single day. So for me, and maybe for you, shifting from scarcity to abundance is a daily practice. And it might seem simple, and it might seem like things that you've heard before, but ask yourself, are you actually making those shifts? Are you actually catching yourself when you're in that lack and scarcity thinking and intentionally making that shift, that uncomfortable, unnatural shift to thoughts of gratitude, to thoughts of abundance, and notice how it just boosts your energy even in the smallest way. So it's simply noticing and then shifting to focusing on those positive thoughts and that positive thinking. And this is how you can embody and channel an abundance mindset even when you might not be feeling very abundant.